Peace and love, family. I'm Brother Yusiku L, and I want to welcome you to the Ringing Stone Network. And at this time, we got Baba Lesser Loving's a little background. We did a tour for the Eclipse in 27 for the 2017 uh, Eclipse. So mm, the feel for this eclipse is different, and I don't know if it's because of the the people or it's because of it's just so many rumors about what's going on, and they got people all over the place. At some point, they got people afraid to go into the house, like that. And so, uh, I've been busy because I just got back from Hot Springs. But when I talked to Baba Lester, I was like, man, we got to squeeze this show in because, there's a difference between theory and theorem. And so I thought that we'll bring in a melanated scientist so that, we can just look at um, and understand how our creator designed this planet like a Swiss watch. It's so much like a Swiss watch, family. I love in South Carolina when it turns spring. The robins come, the pear trees come, the dogwoods come, the cherry trees come, the frogs come. And I can basically tell what month it is based on all of those transitions, right? And so when someone is trying to tell you that possibly the planet is speeded up, or there is going to be an eclipse that's going to shift this planet, knowing your surroundings, it just helps because you can listen to them and keep on going, like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in Brother Lester. I'm gonna let him give a little background on himself. And we can get into the bill. So, family, I am so happy to bring to you Brother Lester Lovings. I just miss Brother Eric. That's it, family. Lester Loving. Peace, Baba. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Chilling. Yeah. And I'm glad I'm doing the show. You know, I've been running like crazy. And I was talking to a friend today, and, you know, I, he implied that the things that I was working on was distracting me. And I was like, you're 100% right. So, you know, and it was true. You know what I mean? Like you know, running around trying to work and then fix cars. You know what I'm saying, Bob? And then go to bed. And so I wasn't getting anything done because what I'm doing now, I should have had finished. You know what I mean? And so I got to stop trying to do things at the last minute. That's not good. So I appreciate you. If there's something you want to share with us before we get into the bill, please share.
Well, like the nature of all things, um, this is a good time for us to examine another another phenomenon that doesn't happen every day, and to see what to see to see what is informing us as a planet and as individuals. Also, just it's a crazy upside down time period. There's lots of change and evolution and stuff on the planet. So it's just good that we touch base again. It's right after the the equinox, so the days are a little bit longer, and we're getting ready to prepare our ground and our stuff for our new planting season.
That's true. So I've been ready since February, and I ran into a sister when I did sweat lodge that was like soak your seeds for 24 hours in the dark and then put them
Hmm.
in. So I got to try that. Yeah, definitely. You know.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to go into any kind of scientific dissertation, but it really is a very fascinating moment because, you know, um, well, most people are familiar with or heard something about, how many degrees we have to go before we can't reverse this thing. You know, a lot of that seems to be intangible to most of us. That doesn't, that doesn't affect us on a day-to-day level. That doesn't come out of our paycheck. But a little bit closer to home, we're dealing with this whole thing about um, the easiest way I can describe it is the reclassification of food.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, see, it was, let's see, this is 2024. It was 2021 when they announced that they had a new technology in which they could take a very tiny molecule of some aspect of an animal and put it into a some type of matrix such as a mushroom, uh, and have it grow and form a steak. And the only way that they were able to get this passed was by agreeing that this so-called this new type of meat could only be sold in certain restaurants. Um, and that yeah, and so July the 1st of last year was when this stuff first became legal to be sold in our restaurants. And about a week before that, Congress changed the law to allow different technologies to grow different types of meat. So we have 3D printed meat machines now. Um, and I even saw like a fondue amino acid um, meat maker where you just dip in a thing to a bunch of chemicals and out will grow your whatever. So I'm just saying that this is a fascinating time because it's a time of classification and reclassification of everything. And in this particular case, what is food? What is the definition of food? And the way that it's going here in New York, this new these new chemical, not chemical, but these new types of things are they're not classified as meat.
Scary. You know what I mean? Like I was walking through the grocery store last night and looked at they on the end cap they had that almost meat or near meat or something like that. I've never tried it, but you know, it's very scary. And it could be safe. It's just sometimes you look at people's reputations, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
automatically put on brakes. It's like your reputation. You
Uh-huh.
know what I mean? Like, did you ever see back in the day the commercials of them spraying DTC on people at the swimming pool? You know what I mean? They had like a fogger, and they was fogging these people, right? Like that. And now look, they trying to give every military man that went to Vietnam Agent Orange. Like which is something they spray. So you kind of put on brakes on it, or so. You know, I just, if I could take a cow and you don't give it no shots, I'm good. Regular chicken, I'm good. I don't, you know what I'm saying? And so it is. Well, let's go back to how eclipses evolved because I learned something today studying for you that kind of blew me away, you know. So, and I looked at even how they are predicted.
Uh-huh.
You see what I mean? And there's a lot of people out there, and I'm not trying to prove nothing. I'm just saying we brought in the scientists to give us an explanation, right? So what I was learning today, the moon is at a 5 degree tip, right?
Uh-huh.
And could you explain that? And that's why we have eclipses?
Okay. Um, well, okay. I guess we, as my usual MO is that I start with the word and the definition. So, if we're going to talk about eclipses, we have to talk about the ecliptic.
Yes. Yes.
And in this particular case, the ecliptic would be the center point of our planet, geographically. So in other words, we could if we could draw a line through the middle of the Earth, uh, where our ecliptic line is, the moon is travels either 5 degrees above that line down to that eclipse or ecliptic line, and then dips down 5 degrees below and back. Uh huh. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Uh huh.
Yes. And that's very deep because I knew we was at a I always thought that the planets, the sun and the moon, we were kind of bouncing around in space.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
then every 18 years, we're on the horizontal plane. But family, actually, it wobbles kind of like when the top is leaning and spinning, like that. And then on certain occasions, it wobbles in between the sun and the earth, and it casts a shadow on us, right?
Yes.
Basically. And so I hope we can get a picture of it. I was trying to put it on my TV, but I'm running so late, man. I apologize, family. But yeah, it's very deep that was one of the things. So um I looked at they started like 7 before Christ, they started predicting eclipses.
Yes.
Maybe no, they yeah, something like that. And they call it the Syrian cycle or something like that.
That is one of the. Yes. Uh-huh.
What are some of the other cycles then?
Well, eclipses were very important to the Chinese Empire, and in other words, most of the people or the groups of people that lived in South America, they culture spent a tremendous amount of time studying when eclipses were going to occur. So basically, let me rearrange what I just said, and
Yes.
say instead of singling out a culture, every culture that we see, a part of their culture was spent determining when eclipses happen. It was a very important thing for most cultures to know.
And why was it religious, spiritually? Did they think their ancestors was coming back to the planet? Why?
Well,
Or
see, okay, okay. I'm only laughing because as a kid, um, I would go to the museum and I would see, say, the dinosaur, skeleton, right?
hmm
And then I see the dinosaur skeleton, and it was huge, and as I went later on, I found out that only one of those bones in that skeleton was an actual dinosaur bone. They had replicated the other ones. Um, I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
the eclipses. You at the museum and them replicating dinosaur bones. See, I looked at it as like there was this guy, um, Edmund Holly
Yes,
is his name.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, uh-huh.
And his relationship with one of our known scientists,
Right.
European, but in 1715, Edmund Halley supposedly rediscovered the Syrian cycle
Mm-hmm.
and then took it to another level because he predicted the gravitational forces and
Correct.
whatnot.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So, what did he find out
Uh,
with the?
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
how did he determine eclipses? That's what I'm trying to find out. How? What did he find out?
uh, okay. Well, see, once again, what needed to happen first was the whole work that we lumped together as Newtonian, uh, Newtonian geometry. So
Okay.
that's all about angular momentum, how different bodies interact with each other, how different gravitational effects happen on each other. And so the fact that people, several different scientist groups were studying that, when Mr. Halley came along and did his research, we were just becoming aware of the fact that we weren't all on a single plane all the time, and
Okay.
that the Earth didn't go around. Well, first of all, for 2,500 years, everybody in the world was taught that the sun went around the Earth. So that was that time period when we were readjusting from that thinking.
But was that Europe and
That was
or
Europe.
Kemet? Yeah, Europe thought
No,
that
no,
because
no. We're talking only European understanding.
okay,
The people,
okay,
no, I mean, even up until whatever time that they celebrate, they talk about the Julian calendar. Before that, the Roman calendar was only 330 days.
right, right,
So I mean, all these things. That was my point about the museum. My point about the museum is that, uh, you know, when I was growing up, science meant solid data. So if they said the moon has this effect on the Earth, then that was assumed that that was a forever thing. But now, as we get more and more able to measure stuff, now we can say the moon is moving a quarter of an inch away from the Earth every year. Blah blah blah. Okay, and most of their science is always presented in terms of the doomsday kind of thing. So how long will it be until it separates and all this kind of thing? But the reverse is also true. So, in other words, you asked me, was it a spiritual or metaphysical thing? No, it was the fact that the moon was closer to the Earth as we go farther back in history, and therefore the eclipses, especially the solar one, was way longer. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like the light would
mhm,
disappear for 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. And if you were a culture that didn't know when that was going to happen, of course you're thinking that might be a sign of a bad omen. It's also not just a fairy tale that in the writings of all these different cultures that we have right now, these ancient cultures, that there was some kind of precipitory or anticipatory energy that goes along, not just with the eclipse, but when the sun, the moon, and the earth and other planets align, they knew that on certain occasions, uh, uh, earthquakes would come after that for sure. So basically, what I'm saying is that I've learned to look at this as a moving astrological weather pattern. That these all these players change positions, and therefore the influences are slightly different on each other. Um, the moon, like I said, the moon used to be closer to the Earth than it is now. So even the growing patterns of the plants would be different. I mean, we've all seen those science fiction movies from when they go below the Earth or when they go back in time or whatever. But it's based on reality that the plants that we see now, the palms and the grasses that we see now, those things were 10 feet tall. So depending on different influences, especially the moon, uh, things will be different.
I get it. But you brought up something that I've been questioning.
Uh huh.
You brought up angular momentum.
Yes.
And so I I'm going out there to total darkness leaving tomorrow. But I wondered about um with the moon in front of the sun, how does that affect our electromagnetic field? You see what I mean? Because this and and does that angular momentum play a role in that? And I'm not trying to get too scientific. We're gonna get into the metaphysics. Excuse me. Because I listened to our old show. And I
Uh
wish I
huh.
could play a bit for you. You compared the Mayan calendar with the eclipse and the different rings and what you think short term and long term. You went in on that.
Right. Right. Right.
and
Right.
and you went into the pine cone stuff. So,
Uh
and
huh.
family, I'm uploading what we did in 2017.
Uh huh.
But is there a difference of the impact of the electromagnetic field when the moon goes in front of the sun? And I'm not a doomsday. I just want to know.
No. Okay. 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 Um. First and foremost. Okay. Uh. People that know me know that I rant and rave about the fact that our culture, and by our culture I mean our modern Western culture, always focuses on events and exact moments. The moment of totality, the exact moment of the earthquake. Um,
Don't mean
uh, I'm sorry. What was your question again?
the the angular momentum, the electromagnetic field.
Right, right.
When the
Okay.
sun, yeah,
No, no.
okay,
The Western way of looking at this, okay, is always, it's almost always binary. So it's usually describing it. They look at it properly, but the way their words describe it is, oh, it's the sun and the moon, it's the earth and the sun, it's the so and so. So the first thing that we have to understand is that anytime these three of them interact, you're going to have some kind of what we call gravitational relationship. The main thing is where they are angularly on a plane to each other. You know, um, so uh, in other words, when they're directly across from each other, that's going to have a much greater effect than if one is 5 degrees above or 5 degrees below, uh,
okay,
like that. Now,
great,
I
okay.
preface what I said by saying that's the Western way of looking at it. The more what's the word we'd use? What's the word? Um, uh, the more
Melanated indigenous people.
indigenous, the more indigenous way of looking at it is that there is always there is always a gravitational relationship between the sun and all the players in our solar system.
Okay.
The difference is to understand, and it goes back to the word that we said. the angular momentum. Now, everybody focuses on the word momentum, but the key is the angles that those momentums make in relation to each other. In other words, in astrology, we know that a 60-degree angle relationship is a harmonious one. We know a 90 is a struggle. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes. Continue.
So
Yes.
we always have to look at the relationship of all of the planets to each other when we want to answer that question about the gravitational effect. And you ask what is the difference, and I'm going to answer. I'm going to give you an answer that I could not possibly have given you in 2017. Okay, we have this thing called the Arctic vortex. And the Arctic vortex, we're familiar with it here in New York because every once in a while during the winter, suddenly this screaming amount of super cold air and funk will just blast down to us. And part of what makes the Arctic vortex happen is that the jet stream dips down and lets more of that, that more of that air that's up near the North Pole come down. The other reason that that happens is because the polar vortex, which is what making this thing happen, it travels in a clockwise direction around the North Pole. This is an energy that's above the planet that spins in a clockwise direction. Okay, only just recently, that's right, get the headlines. We saw a reverse polar vortex. That means this thing was traveling in the opposite direction that we've ever seen it traveling before. Okay? Now, what that has to do with answering our question about what's different is that whenever we have a coronal mass ejection, that means that the energy coming out of the sun is going to hit all the planets. I'm going to repeat that. The energy coming out of the sun, that magnetic energy coming out of the sun, is going to hit all the planets, not just ours. It won't hit all at the same time. But remember, there's a gravitational relationship between these things. So it's going to affect the angular momentum on to a slight degree. Okay. Now, because we have this reverse uh, solar vortex, even though every time the sun is releasing one of these solar flares and hitting the Earth with a solar flare, so in the last 3 or 4 weeks, every time we've been hit with a solar flare energy, uh, it's been allowing more of the energy to go through the clouds and come near the ground. On the other hand, because we have this reverse solar vortex, it's keeping all of the cosmic rays, which would normally be stripping us of energy, it's been pulling them away from the surface of the Earth and collecting them up near the near the pole. So it's actually acting as a shield for us and allowing us to get our, to raise our vibration to take in that extra energy.
Right. Okay. So then to go, I don't know if I'm adding on to it, but
Yeah,
when
good.
we look at the amount of heat that leaves out our head, which
Yeah,
they can calculate in BTU,
yeah.
right? When there's an eclipse and you're in the right angle, wouldn't that increase your ability to communicate with your ancestors or
Okay.
the
Okay.
information coming out your head?
Okay. Well, okay. Before we can even get to that, my brother. Okay. I mean, okay. Hold on.
All
I'm
right.
writing it. I did like you. I got something so I can write stuff down so I can keep notes.
I hear
Okay.
you. Like the old days, the old
Yes.
days.
Okay. I want us to examine the process.
Thank
Okay.
you. Hmm.
Um. In this particular case, this is not so. I'm not talking about some spooky, uh, you know, super collider type science here. The moon is going to be going, you know, between us and the sun, and will be covering the face of the sun for a few minutes. In those few minutes, when we have, what we call the darkness, when we're looking through our sunglasses or our filter, or, back in the day, we used to use a Coke bottle. I don't know how many people remember that, but we used to use an old, thick Coke bottle. Um, what we will notice is suddenly for that minute or so, we'll suddenly realize we can see the stars. And depending on where we are, we might be able to see a planet or two. And this brings us to the basic theorem about the power or the energy of shadow. When it comes to the definition of shadow, the power of the shadow is dependent upon the velocity of the light source. Okay, did you hear what I said?
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
therefore, if I'm increasing the light force exponentially for a couple of minutes, then that shadow that we are under is a perfect environment for having contact and correctly deciphering what our ancestors are telling us to do.
Right. Thank you. And for the layman, could you explain that again in layman term?
Well,
You know,
I'll just give examples that I don't understand these things,
perfect.
but little Lester wants me to he wants to understand, so I have to say it to him. So, when it comes to all those old movies, when they show no matter what culture it is, it could be from India, it could be from ancient Rome, or especially Egypt, in Central America, South America, whenever they showed the king or queen, if they were walking among the people, they would usually have somebody holding up what to us look like an umbrella. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as I got older, I learned that that was called a parasol. Okay. And usually there was somebody else sprinkling either flower petals for their feet, but also spreading gold dust in front of them.
Mm.
And so as a kid, I just thought this was some magical ritual. And then as I grew up, I realized it was a ritual, all right, but it was replicating the fact that by putting that leader, that king, that empress, that whoever in the shadow, that they're being informed, they're getting more energy than the actual light from the sun itself. And the gold dust that they're sprinkling in front of it is representing when the star let off the gold dust. The heavier
Mm.
stars let off gold dust, or well, microscopic gold, and most stars let off gold when they're first formed.
Mm. Okay.
So being in the shadow, it actually is more informative, depending on the light source. Um, the shadow is informative. It's almost another way of saying we can see into the future because we can see into the past as well. That's the
That's,
physics of how it works. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well, no one really knows about that. We just know that it works.
Wow. Powerful. So when I go to totality,
Yeah.
I can expect that it may be some gold dust, which is like monatomic gold
It will.
or
It will.
similar.
No, because what I'm saying is what I'm saying is, I mean, it goes back to that. It goes back to the experiment with Einstein. Where Einstein had said, he was saying that there's gravitational uh, gravitation is a field. It's an existing thing, and that it will, different physical things will change the form or change the structure of that field. And so it was only when they had an eclipse and the sun's light was blocked out, but the star that was behind the sun, they could still see the light of that sun, even though the star was directly behind the sun. So they knew the light of that star had gone around the body of the sun, and it proved Einstein's theory. Uh, but what I'm saying is that because we're getting starlight in the middle of the day, okay, that that light is from so far back that it's extremely informative. And we're in the umbrella. The umbrella that we're in is being made by the moon.
Mhm.
So yes, it's an ideal. It's an ideal time uh, with which to, as you said, communicate with the ancestors and and be informed by the ancestors.
Yes. Is there a variation in how close you are to totality, or is it just it will cover the entire planet?
um, my immediate answer to that is uh, I'm looking for. I'm trying to find the least judgmental way of saying this. Uh, uh, it, it's our ability to fast.
Okay.
In other words, it's making us ourselves whatever our rituals are, whatever we're being called to do in the next couple of days to prepare ourselves for receptivity. You know, that is more important than the closeness to the zone of totality.
Wow. Powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because it's, for people to understand, a lot of people in the conscious community understands the relationship with gold,
Sure.
and they do. And it's interesting, those rumors about the Anunnaki,
Uh-huh.
why would you come to Earth when you could have been getting it, you know what I mean? Like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Was there a need for you to come to Earth when it gold was everywhere? You know what I'm saying?
Uh,
And
uh-huh.
and just the genius of it, the genius of uh our ancestors, you know, being can stay in one place because you know what I mean, they can get you the information you want
Right.
because you may naturally be breathing enough gold plus other
Right.
things,
That's right.
your the electromagnetic field. My mom used to say, "Get a prayer through."
Hmm.
Let's get a
Hmm.
prayer
Hmm.
through.
Hmm.
So and I appreciate that because I have people that's hiding in basements and calling me and warning me not to be out in it, and it's like it's tragic because and you're gonna miss the boat conceivably, of speaking about you want to elevate and then not getting in a global environment that's created for elevation. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
that's kind of tragic, but I understand why the rumors are out there, because they don't want people elevated. So of course they prefer you to be in, because if you fast and you're in the environment, what you're going to take in is water and gold. You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying?
mhm, mhm,
Basically,
mhm,
you know,
mhm.
and that gold has traveled so far that it can have a message. Almost like how all these phones have a unique address, and that unique address could be coming to you, and you missed the boat. You know, your goal end up and your message end up falling on your roof. And that was the thing about it, and that's why I want to really go into how practical the eclipses are. You know what I mean? So it's like, no, this is very practical. You could sit down now with a calculator and calculate every 18 years, and within that 18 years, you can know where it's at. Plus, you know, every 18 months you get one within that 18 years.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
they've been doing that since 2000 before Christ,
Right,
right?
right.
And so that's the part, I want to get in so that when to because what you're doing is taking out the spookism, that is spooky. Ooh, this is spooky. No, this is, because there's a lot of people that are waking up, that's just discovering the moon. You know
Right.
what I mean? I'm sure you ran across a few people and
Mhm,
they see a conspiracy in the moon
mhm.
because, like that. And so the for them to understand, it's like when the moon gets in front of the sun, it's gonna cast a shadow, just like when you're walking down the sidewalk, and as you walk or you in front of a light, and as you move, your shadow is gonna move in a different
Mhm,
angle,
mhm,
basically, and you can calculate that angle.
mhm.
So it's good for people to know or be able to show, like that. And so there's a thing that you taught me, that there's not only high tide, but the earth will raise 3 or 4 inches when the moon is pulling on the earth at
Uh-huh.
that time.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I won't do conspiracy. I want to. I so bad, but I won't. So at totality, then that moon is going to be pulling on the people too, right?
Well, to once again, I'm only answering it this way because I know there's a lot of scientists that listen to me because they're listening for this. That's not scientific. Uh, uh, not on because not only will the moon be pulling on the earth, but the sun will be pulling on it at the same time in the same direction. Now,
Wow. Okay.
let me go back. Let me go back to
Thank
what
you.
I said before. We have to get used to looking at these things in terms of describing them as systems. So we're used to saying the tide, and by that we mean, oh, the moon is pulling on the water of the earth, but the moon is pulling on one way, but the sun is still pulling too. Okay, so when they're opposite, when it's the full moon, you got the moon pulling in one direction and the sun pulling in another direction. In this particular case, we're going to have them both pulling in the same direction. So it's even more of what you're talking, the tendency of what you're talking about. Yes.
Mm. Okay. Wow.
And that's why because people always say, well, we go through one of these things every 18 years, and we go through one every 18 months, and we go through 180 years and 180, and I'm like, but yes, but these people, particularly the Mayans, they're writing down all the subtle differences. They're writing the correspondences so they can, they can learn about how to make every combination work to their best advantage, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though it's the same eclipse, it's like sometimes that moon might be in a different sign than it is now, or in a different phase of the year, or whatever. So and it takes many times for that to happen to see the effect of it. Because for example, in the Chinese culture, they were particularly looking at the eclipses in terms of the birth and or the health of the emperor.
And why is that?
Because under their systems, uh, they believe under once again under certain combination of planets. If they were to be born under an eclipse, that usually foretold ill health or a short reign of rulership,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or I'll put it another way, challenges to that rulership.
Mm. Okay. Where was it something that was accurate or because they studied all of the planets? You know, something like how Raku do the cosmophysician thing.
Right,
What is and did they calculated all that too?
right.
Okay.
Well, no.
Okay.
Well, see, once again, up until we started, trading with Nixon, you know, when we quote unquote we opened up the doors, to China again. In other words, recognizing that, in fact, you are a player. Um, Chinese history was discouraged on both sides. It was discouraged by the dominant societies, and was discouraged from being taught by the Chinese. But we now know that their basic their basic tenet, down to the Forbidden City, you know, down to the Emperor's Palace, all of that is based on the Temple of Heaven, which is this place where they say their ancestors come from in space. And all their architecture is in one form of replication of that original space. So anything that goes along with that, anything that's in their culture has something to relates to the temple of heaven.
Mm. Okay.
So in other words, it's much deeper than what we've all heard. We've all heard it's all deep, but it's way deeper than that. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Well,
So
see,
there.
what I'm saying is that right now, archaeologically, okay, no matter what culture we talk about, if we go out in the jungle, if we dig underneath the Antarctic, if we go, to the mountains, wherever we go, you know, if we find a culture, right, and we look at their writings, and we can determine that not only did they know that we have a sun and that we have a moon, but in their understanding that we have 10 planets, or say 11 planets, right? Then that would be, we would say, oh my God, how can this culture be so advanced? But we sometimes we miss the forest for the trees, because the Chinese, as just one culture, is telling us, but we come from way beyond this whole solar system. Okay, and it was our ancestors traveled here, so and they claim they got a knowledge of all the stuff they encountered between there and here, and that's part of what you're talking about, is making ourselves receptive to that type of information.
We need it. I mean, we need it so that, you know, sometimes we say that we're always last to get things, and so that it would be the same as if the out of 50 of my friends, it looked like 40 of them just want to go fast and meditate and stay in the house, and they think that this energy is bad. Well, that makes us last to but we always talking about it's our time for the planet.
Uh-huh.
You see what I mean? And so maybe at some point, you know, we spend too much time with religion and look at metaphysics, and the science in metaphysics is what you teach me. You see what I mean? Because some people, my friends, look at the science of metaphysics is religion. It's like, because and I've been different since I came back from Hot Springs, so I haven't been challenging people, but I just been wondering, like, where do y'all get this from? Why you don't follow your inner spirit that out of we can predict these eclipses, and so our ancestors could have definitely predicted that the eclipses would go over Little Egypt, Illinois, right? You
Uh-huh.
see what I mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Because they would be that accurate. They said that Holly in 1715 predicted uh, eclipses, and he would be within 20 miles in 4 minutes.
Yep.
That was just him.
Yep.
You see what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a predictable phenomenon, family, where we get fed enlightenment through the gold, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Every 18 years, you're supposed to be outside snorting air, basically, you know, not, hiding away, like the boogeyman gonna come. I'm wrong for saying that, so I know some people gonna call me and go off me saying that, because that's their belief system. But my thing is that there's some things we should learn. You know what I mean? So we know about our surroundings. So nobody just can't come up to you and just say things or get on YouTube and be like, blah, blah, blah. And the devil comment is going through, which I'm sure you
Uh-huh.
heard
Uh-huh.
like that. The interesting part about the devil comment is it's a 71-year cycle, and we have a 72-year pole shift.
Right. Right.
So I'm more concerned about you know, could we be a year away from the pole shift?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, that we would have had to have a pole shift for my mother's lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So does that, because of that angular momentum, will that comet have some effect too? I know it will, but how much? If
I will have to look at the actual data. But the short answer is yes, it will have some effect. Absolutely. Oh, look. Oh, look. One of the things that I love about our modern culture is that we pound our chest as to how technologically we are. you know. So, people can tell us the exact moment that it's going to be in this and how long it's going to be, and the last time it happened, the next time it happened. But the thing that I'm looking at is, uh, like all science, where are the record keepers so that we can compare this experience to other experiences?
right,
And to the very point that you made, our culture always focuses on these big events. So it's like, well, it happens in between 18 and 19 years, and therefore the tendency is to think, oh, well, I got to wait for another 18 years. Well, we got to get a sample of that, like you said, brother, 18 months. You know,
yep,
we get many samples of all these things. It's like ripples or echoes or harmonies, you know. And the more we pay attention to each of the little cycles and the little events, the more that when the big events happen, it makes more sense because we've already studied all of those other things. And versus waiting to comprehend this big event, if you know what I mean.
I get it. I get it. But, so you're saying that our learning should be constant, so that when we get a big event,
Yeah.
you know, we might put you out of business in so many words. In a very loving way, you know what I mean? You know, because you know me and Eric gonna be waking you up. You know that we you know how we do. But yeah, that's so true. So that I've been telling people that my Bible verse is when the disciples came and they asked Jesus. I know it's fictitious, for whence he was going to come back. And that's what I've been carrying this eclipse and all the misinformation out.
Uh-huh.
Because Jesus tells them that there's going to be a lot of fake shit come before I come back. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And in this eclipse, it is a lot of fake because the one thing we do know from what you said is we might not have that data. You know what I mean? But I'm sure our government know what's happening every 18 years.
That's
You see
right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that. Because I mean, this is the first year that I've noticed, and it could be because of technology, that they trying to tell you where every cloud gonna be. You know what I mean? you know what I'm saying? Like they
I
giving the
do.
cloud report,
That's
like,
right. That's
yo,
right.
yeah, you know. But them knowing that if they put forms of spookism in it, then you miss out. Cause me, I, I would be gone. I just gotta, I gotta get my daughter back Tuesday for school, so I needed the additional driver, and they have a commitment. But if not, I'd be up there dancing with the people, having me a good time, like that, John. You know what I'm saying? I would, because it's plus the fact that um, there's certain things that are could be once or twice in a lifetime,
Hmm.
you know, and to I'm gonna run some video while, you know, if you want to add something, I'm gonna run video of when it got dark. I got a video family from 2017 when we did see another star in the middle of the day. It got just through you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier, and I can show you that it's a once in a lifetime, and then I understand it's a shadow. It's based on the moon wobbles. It doesn't wobble, but it goes from above the equator to below the equator to the, you know what I mean? And the positioning of it and then debunking you kind of debunk that, which is good, that by you implying that we used to the moon used to be closer to
Yeah.
us and it's moving away, because there's people that taught that it's got to be a fake moon because it's so properly put, but because of the speed and centrifugal force it is moving away a little bit, you
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
and so
Well,
um
see, that's another one. See, there's all manner of ironies with this thing. Okay, because these scientists are always fond of talking about you know death dates. Like how long will it be till the moon gets far enough to be pulled away? But at the same time, all the planets are being slowly pulled toward the sun.
right.
Okay. So there's always these compensatory check, counter check kind of forces. I guess what I'm saying in the short run is, they always talk about, well, 4 billion years from now, the sun will blow up. Well, we're not going to be here 4 billion years from now. Okay. I guarantee you, it's going to be a whole nother form of multiple other forms of life. Whether we succeed and get our shit together, or whether we fail and we get wiped out and the roaches take over. We ain't gonna be here. So
That's a
I mean, that's my subtle way of saying we got to learn about now and how to use the information from now to our best advantage, not some heaven or later on experience with some super beings somehow.
well, I agree with you because I think that we have to be contemporary because when you start talking about your elevation,
Hmm.
even understanding this cycle helps you to elevate.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Now, I'm sure you heard of the people that they don't want to die, but they're waiting to die so they could go to the fifth dimension. You know what I mean? Like that. It's oh yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And yeah, and one of the person in the text said if you can come a little closer to your mic. She says she can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Or he. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. No
There
problem.
we go. But put your camera up a little bit because we're looking at basically okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, let me figure out how to tilt this thing now. Uh, somehow. How's that?
That's good. Is that better? Let me know in the chat
Oh, what?
if it's
What?
better.
What about the tone? I mean, the volume. Okay, let me see. It might be my thing not turned up all the way. Okay. Hello, can
Yeah.
you hear me? Is that good?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And so um with Jupiter,
Uh-huh.
what impact? Jupiter is a great protector. It puts out a lot of energy. Supposedly, you can see the devil comet is going to be southeast of Jupiter, supposedly at
Okay.
that time. Yeah, supposedly. And I don't remember the names of the people. I shouldn't be calling it the devil comet because that feeds into, you know, the, uh,
Well, it is the name that the dominant culture has given to that experience. So, we know what you're talking about.
right. Okay. Yeah. Now I find that interesting too because you know, just that 71-year cycle
Right.
is is interesting. And so, and that's what I preference it is like the creators. This thing run like a switch watch. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like there's certain stuff that they've been able to calculate, and that planet or the eclipses could not have happened one time for them to be that accurate. You
Right,
see?
right. That's right.
You see what I mean?
That's
And so
right.
we're talking about roughly 4 or 5 thousand years that they've been predicting eclipses.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the societies that was doing the predictions were some of the dominant societies of that time. Like this and the Babylonians did it. But they probably got it from Kemet, like that. I don't know for sure what Bible. But then again, you had Isaac Newton and Holly. They were predicting some things, you know, along with all the other things they were doing,
Uh-huh.
right? They were calculating this angle, the momentum to figure out eclipses. Exactly. You know, and that's very powerful. So before I play this video, um, I'm nosy. So
Okay.
the family want to know what you're doing for the eclipse.
Well, one of the things I was going to say is I'm going to be spending the next 24 hours or so literally just tuning my antenna for instructions of where I need to be and what I should do leading up to that. So I mean, I'm keeping it open, but for me, it's a matter of knowing where to be and what to do proceeding up to it. So just simple things like it'll either tell me to fast or it'll tell me specific food to eat. You know, uh, in other words, I've heard all these different things about being inside. I got a whole nother group of people that say, only stay outside. Uh, so there's all manner of stuff. I'm just waiting for instruction.
That's interesting. Do you feel like disalignment is affecting the fault in New Jersey with the earthquake?
Well, once again,
I'm
uh,
sorry.
I tickle. I love the fact that because it's only 2 days away, I don't. Okay. Let me reverse what I was going to say. If this eclipse wasn't 2 days away, I would be putting on my trunks to go into the deep dive of the rabbit hole. There's so much stuff that has come out that I'd be studying for months. So I've been spared that simply by we're gonna see what's gonna happen in a couple of days. And then I have all this other time to study it. But there's some very interesting and compelling data that has come out about the relationship between uh, these eclipses and equator or Earth activities. It's a thing that has been studied by mainstream science, and there is some kind of connection.
Well, I mean, if the way I was taught that if they pull up 3 inches on the earth,
Hmm.
wouldn't it affect the plates at some point?
Yes, it really does have to do with okay. I'm going to have to research what the angles are going to be, because everything is vibration. And so the vibration of those angles will tell me whether those plates will go up and down, whether there'll be urge to go back and forth.
Mm,
You understand? Different frequencies will have different effects on the plates. So it's not for me. It's not just as simple as saying, "Oh, it's this frequency." I mean, it's this angle. I'll be able to tell you a more scientific answer soon. But
cool.
I don't really think it matters because we're going to go through this experience in a very short period of time. It's about paying attention so that we can recognize signals when they happen again. Not so much earthquake signals, but to recognize when something's happening and to not just dismiss it like our culture tells us to.
Right,
You
right.
know, because we
Like,
are right. Because we
say
got
for instance, if the birds start leaving New York City, it's time to
exactly,
go.
exactly,
You know.
exactly.
So I have a friend in New Jersey, and when I called him maybe 10 minutes after it happened. I didn't know some just said call her,
Hmm.
and first thing I said, you got your bug out bag. You know what I mean? It's like get your bug out bag. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Uh-huh.
simply because there's so many prophets and prophecy
That's right.
about New York and Babylon to start having earthquakes like that. It was very interesting. And I didn't look and see when was the earthquake that happened in Washington D.C. Remember there was an earthquake that split the Washington Monument.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah,
Yeah.
back in the day. So I gotta look at it. But in our last show, you we did on the eclipse, you talked about the Mayan calendar and the rings, and
Uh-huh.
you related certain meditation practices to those four rings. I wish I could play it, but my system is acting crazy. I'm
Not at this
learning.
time, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is. But I like open source, so I'm using OBS. I believe if we ever use the ability for people to put open source, the price of apps will triple. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean?
Uh-huh.
Because if
Uh-huh.
they raise them too high, people will learn open source because it's free,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I just try to do open source. So I do a little more work than if I went out and got StreamYard or YardStream. It's a little more work, but I learn a lot, so it's cool. But do you, I'm not saying you recall it, but you talked about it. You even talked about putting negative ions in your house during that eclipse. So let's give some tools for the eclipse that people could have conceivably to go out into or to be in their basement, you know. And my first one would be, what about a magnet?
Ah. Okay. Okay. Before I answer you, are there any other things that come to mind other than magnet?
Oh, definitely quartz,
Uh huh.
definitely. Um, Carbon,
Yep.
because I've been doing a little research on carbon and its relationship to the diamond, and then you know I got some pictures of the I making it up of when during the eclipse where you see the diamond in the
Uh huh.
eclipse,
Oh,
you
oh
know,
yeah, oh yeah, the diamond, yeah, huh?
uh, like that. But is there anything that come to mind? I mean, and they could be they don't have to be specific, but just some things that, like, for instance, the impact of should you put some orgone on, you know, like that,
Get
or
get
rush out and buy one of your pyramids, and you know what I mean, like that sort of thing.
okay. Um, I'm gonna go from the I'm gonna go from the general, and I'm gonna try to get to the specific. Okay, what clearly came through to me, okay, in terms of preparation is uh any form of I now see once again I use the word fasting, okay, but that's a general term. I'm not talking about abstaining from everything in your mouth all day kind of fast. It can be many types of fasting, but what I'm saying is it I am going to be going through the four elements in terms of fasting. So I will do some type of fire cleansing, and
Okay.
then water cleansing, and then air cleansing, and then earth cleansing, and then of course, um, including the first, which we call the fifth element, I'll be doing some kind of etheric or what they call spirit cleansing. So in other words, the most general but useful advice that I could give is that whatever type of cleansing we do in preparation for this or any type of thing, that we include all the elements in our cleansing, not just one, not just our favorite, but all of them. And then, of course, then once we look at it, okay, we can say, and because one of the things I say all the time is we should always have a magnet, okay, and that we carry with at least one, you know. It'd be good to have a double, pair, but we should have magnets with us at all times, and they should be differentiated magnets, meaning that there should be some way of knowing which side is the north side and which side is the south side. Okay, as
Hmm.
far as far as quartz is concerned, um, quartz uh, fits almost every one of the elements, but in this particular case, we're going to include it as uh, the earth element. Okay. Now, quartz is not normally thought of as the earth element, but it covers 90% of the surface of the earth is covered with quartz and is lined throughout with quartz. So and the fact that quartz can duplicate any frequency that's on this planet means it can duplicate any Earth frequency or any Earth cleansing. If we look at having a piece of organite definitely can be thought of as the air element because it works through sending energy through the air and purifying the air. And then as far as carbon is concerned, um, carbon is what in chemistry we call organic. Okay, and that just means it's something that we find in almost every living thing. So we can have we can use carbon for cleansing, uh, and ironically, even though carbon is from the earth, uh, the carbon molecule is a tetrahedron,
Hmm.
and that's a four-sided pyramid. And the word pyramid is from the Greek, which means fire in the middle, which is the symbol for the fire element. So carbon and any form of carbon can be used for fire purification. And that's just the most basic. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like matches are fire. And fire doesn't necessarily just mean the physical fire. It means the understanding behind fire. And earth is the understanding behind earth, and air is the understanding behind air. But yeah, so elemental cleansing is the most basic thing I can give you because it covers all the aspects that we have working within us at the same time.
That's a jewel. You dropped a jewel, brother. So less Baba Lester, what about water? You just use water itself, or is there like me when I think of a gemstone, I think of fire opal because it has a higher water content, or could it just be water?
Okay, water in this sense, okay, it's very interesting you say that because uh, in this instance, water will represent um, uh, the environment.
Mm, okay.
And by that, I mean, in order to grow an embryo, you first have to have the amniotic fluid that surrounds it, that gives it the ability to grow. Okay. In other words, the water precedes everything.
Okay.
The water, the and also too, uh, all of the things that we talked about, from the orgone and organite, the magnet, the quartz, and the carbon, all four of those will purify water.
Mm,
So it's really, really important to start off with water and purified water. And by purified water, I do not mean distilled water. That is not the definition of purified water. Purified water means water that does not have any additives, preservatives, or chemicals in it, but has all the elements necessary to perform life functions. Water needs elements.
say that again. Elab-
I, I said most of the time we interchange the idea of the concept of purified water with distilled water. And distilled water means it has no chemicals or negative stuff in it. It also has no elements in it.
Mhm.
And therefore, if we define purified water as water devoid of chemicals or non-natural stuff that has the proper elements we need for life. So part of purifying and energizing water is also making sure that it's devoid of all chemicals and at at the same time imbued with the proper elements that are necessary. So, for example, we can use a gemstone. Say, for instance, if I want to improve my study, okay, well, I could take a piece of rutile, I should say rutilated quartz, and uh, place that in a container of distilled water for 2 or 3 hours, and then remove the gemstone from the distilled water, and by diluting that water, now adding regular spring water to that water, I now have an elixir that will help me with thinking and studying.
Powerful. Mhm.
So what I'm saying is that water is. We heard it in school, but it's really true. Water is a universal solvent. It can take in all forms of the type of healing that we need, and itself can bring about healing.
I found that to be very true. I've been doing some research on that. It was. I won't get off into that. I'll leave it alone. But I've been, I've been going to hot springs,
I know,
and
but that's
then,
the whole point, bro.
you know,
You been going where the water's coming up from underneath,
yeah,
and that's always a good thing.
yeah, definitely. It's funny because I found some places here in Spartanburg.
Uh-huh.
They
Uh-huh.
they used to have a place that before they got shut down.
Yep. Yep.
They had a 500-room motel. People was coming to Spartanburg, swimming in the water,
Hey.
and it was more lithium based. The
Yes.
one in
Yes.
Atlanta is more Charlotte based.
Right. Right.
The one in Highland Springs, North Carolina, you see what I mean? It has a different thing. So, the earth provides what this is. They're doing the same thing with that they're doing with the eclipse. They're
Mhm.
giving you what they want you to have.
Right.
and
Right.
and it's maintenance because it man, I came back with about 50 gallons of water. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean?
Uh-huh.
Like that. Then I got here on Saturday, and my neighbor, and it was a funny thing because you know I've been doing some research on the feline, the cat. Flumberg had mentioned it, but my teacher was Baba Hamza in D.C. back in 2000 about the feline and the cat people and their relationship to what come to the planet.
Uh-huh.
So Saturday when I went out, I was going to one place where I noticed a string and the cat was sitting by my car. And when I spoke to the cat, my neighbor, we started talking. He was like, "No, you need to go to Whitestone, blah blah blah." People was going there. I got, yeah. So it's water. I've been traveling 3 hours, and now I have it in my backyard.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's definitely very good to be able to know in terms of curing me from my cancer.
Yes.
Water played a major role, Baba,
Yes.
in it, a major role. You know what I'm saying? And so I would, family, if you can find a place, check your national parks, because they're trying to buy it all up. Thank God Hot Springs is a national park. You see what
Uh-huh.
I mean?
Uh-huh.
They trying to make sure you don't. I think, don't get me wrong, quote me, but Jill Pruitt had talked about the importance of quartz in water.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
simple. You know, so question, crazy question.
Okay.
But I gotta ask you.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
say if you took some spring water, natural spring water, and then set it out during the eclipse, would you pick up some of that gold?
Yes.
Okay.
But see,
I'm not.
once again, my brother, that's not the crazy part. Okay?
Bill.
No, no, no. You left me completely sane. Okay, that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is the fact that if we set out that water and we ask it to take on the gold and the other cosmic elements that we need, it will supply that container with the exact amounts that we need. That's the crazy part.
See, there you go. I'm gonna have to borrow Red Pill Bomb because he dropped a jewel. That's beautiful. So, mm, so set your water out. Decent water, family. Like start out now.
Right,
Hit your water.
right.
If you can get it non-fluorinated,
That's
put
right.
some quartz in it.
That's right.
Right. And then when you set it out, it'll be like sun tea. Remember our ancestor, my mama used to put the tea out in the porch and you had the good sun tea,
That's
whatnot.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then you would have some water uh, that you can actually continue your fast with, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
hmm Now, can they write their intentions on the glass or just should ask? Let me get you here.
No, they can, of course. What would be more efficient is for them to write the intentions and put that container on top of it when they're
Okay.
working. Because you want to structure that you want to structure that water for um as for its universal potentiality. Okay. Once you have that in that water, then you can put that water in smaller containers that you can write on, because then you can fine tune it to specific cases or specific incidences. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
You would have a
Yes.
big batch that's a general batch, but then you can put that
Yeah.
you can pour some of that
Okay.
and even dilute it with the spring water, but put the wording on that.
Yeah.
So you could have one for study, one for health, one for uh, finances. All manner of things.
I get you. So you have one, excuse me, you you have one
That
that is
can
uncontaminated that the
right,
ancestors will feed unique to
right,
you.
right.
And then you can have others for your own intentions coming from your heart or your mind.
That's right.
Right?
That's
That's
exactly
right.
yes.
Okay.
That's right.
I get it. Yeah, I get it now. Okay. Man, I'm gonna have to take some water up there with me. Definitely. Because I am, you know, uh, when I got back from Hot Springs, you know, the ancestors told me that w- when they finish with this particular eclipse, people
hmm
won't be on the fence. They're
hmm
going to magnify
Right.
you. So if you're spiritual, they're going to magnify that. And if
hmm
you're vices, they're going to magnify that. So, and that's going to take people off the fence. You know what I mean? Like that. So I find that to be very powerful. And these are the tools, family. These are some of the tools for the eclipse given to you by Baba. And I
Well,
appreciate it.
see, one of the other tools is the fact that an eclipse, by the very analogy or metaphor of its nature, it is stopping something temporarily before it starts it up again. And in this particular case, uh, one of because of all the other, where it is in space and time. In other words, it's in early spring. We, We've just had one of the planets go into another sign. We actually have Mercury's retrograde right now. So the combination of all these conditions tells us that um, it tells us that uh, it's time for us to go to the places and the people that value our talent, or it's time for us to take our talent in another direction where it'll be even greater appreciated in value. That's the full meaning of what this particular eclipse is about. So when you said, how do I need to get ready for this eclipse? For me, if that is the primary function of this eclipse, then the first thing I need to do in order to get ready is to meditate on what is my talent and what is its worth and what does it need to perpetuate itself.
We need a moment of silence for that. You know, well, family, can we get a moment of silence?
No, 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 no,
Definitely
we
got to
can't.
think about that. That's
We,
powerful.
no, we can't because we have to add the other thing, which is what you've been saying all this whole transmission. Okay. In the Bible, when they talk about talents, they're talking about gold.
Mm.
Remember? Well, not everybody went to Sunday school, but for those of us who went to Sunday school, we always learned about the man who left, and he left his three slaves, and he left one with one talent, and the second one with two talents, and the third one with three talents. And he said, I'm going off. I don't know how long I'm going to be. This is enough gold for you to, do whatever you need to do to maintain yourself. And so he goes off and he does whatever, and he comes back after several years, and he asks the first slave, he says, what have you done? And he says, oh, I invested in this and whatever, and I doubled the money and blah, blah. And I say, I gave it, I raised it all for you. And he says, okay, that's yours. And then he went to the second slave. He says, what did you do? And he says, I did this and I invested and I did whatever, blah, blah, and I doubled the money. And he goes, that's for you. And then he went to the third slave and he says, what did you do with your talent? He says, I was afraid somebody was going to steal it, so I buried it in the ground. And he dug it up and he handed it to the master. And the master said, I'm taking away your talent. So as a kid, I always thought this was a metaphor talent, like, oh yeah, I'll take away your talent. You don't usually take away your talent. But then as an adult, I looked in the dictionary and the word talent was an actual thing. Back in the day, it was 70 pounds of gold. So, brother, it's time for us to value our talents, our gold.
Get it, and I appreciate it because it makes it gets me to take uh I'll pack a different suitcase
There
for
you
when I
go.
get there.
That's right.
You see
That's
what I
right.
mean?
That's
Like
right.
I'll pack uh mentally I will pack a mental suitcase where I'll be more focused on
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
energy. You know what I mean? I'll try to go into it neutral because you kind of saying go more neutral into it
Right.
so that you can let spirit um, give you what you need to grow on. Like, how do I go another step in the ladder? You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and uh, and I'm a proponent of that because
Right.
I think that each person's DNA is different, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so spirituality is not a cookie cutter thing for me. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
unique to me, it's unique to my daughter, and it's unique to everybody on how to get to there. want to go like that, you know. And so it's good to, and you'll still be working for the common good of what's going to take place. You'll
Uh-huh.
just be one of the blood vessels, let's say, within the body of what's taking place with the new energy.
Well, I think one of the words that also came up in terms of interpreting what this eclipse was about was renewal, but renewal in like the phoenix sense. Okay, you kind of look like what am I talking about? Okay, the phoenix, the phoenix, the story of the phoenix is you know we know that it's rising out of its nest. Okay,
Hmm.
but that's the second part. The first part is that the phoenix gets up and makes the nest that it's going to sit in and be consumed by.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, but that very consumption allows a new phoenix to come out of that ash. So, like I said, part of this eclipse has an energy of renewal.
Powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to be open minded about.
That's right.
No, maybe the word is malleable
Yeah, yeah,
to,
there you go. Right,
you
right,
know, you
right,
be
right.
malleable when you go into this,
Yes.
because if your preset conditions supersede the eclipse, then you get nothing out of it
Mm-hmm,
at that
mm-hmm.
moment.
Right, right, right.
You might learn later, but if you're going in like, hey, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't my religious system or my traditional African or my Sequel's traditional indigenous stuff, you know, don't pack that. You know what I mean? Just go in, you know, and enjoy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then take some elementals
Mm-hmm.
which are gonna resonate because of the environment and what's going on. And that's very powerful. You know what I mean? I want to ask you a question because I got someone in the chat want to ask you about the beaver.
Uh-huh.
You know, yeah. So, do you want to elaborate on it? Maybe it's one of your students or something.
Oh, there are no students. We're all co-conspirators. We're all co-conspirators trying to take out ignorance. Okay, a shot to the head. Death or ignorance. Okay. Um. Um. These Kemites, these people that lived in this upper and lower zone. Uh, our interpretation, or I should say our modern interpretation, is always about um, the death cult, their obsession with mummies and death and burial and the book of the dead and all this stuff. Okay, well, uh, the Kemites said while we are in our non-sleeping stage, in other words, while we're walking around, that we should pay attention to the other creations because they are, in fact, our teachers. And they are here to show us, to demonstrate to us, and also to teach us the proper ways of working with and using energy. The beaver, of course, is uh, well, it is a particular fascination because growing up in New York City, we always had an emphasis on the beaver. It's right on the city flag. And, from the moment they got here, there were beavers always making dams and changing waterways. Also, too, I found it fascinating and that I took art history in high school. And um, one of the things that was highly unexplained was how many of these pictures of these royals that we have from way back, on their royal, those big coats that they used to wear with the royal, the crowns and the pearls and all that stuff in it. Well, a lot of them had beaver coats and stuff. Okay, and these pictures were painted before Christopher came to America. So, right, even then, it was like, well, okay, who's trading beaver skins? Who's coming over here and getting this stuff? So I've always been fascinated with beavers. Now, the beaver, of course, not only creates its own home, so that in of itself is a magnificent thing. It's able to, it has the proper equipment as far as its teeth are concerned to, cut down those young saplings. Uh, and also with the type of feed it has and the oil on its skin, it can float in the water. Its eyes can be out of the water, and it can still hold up that tree. It's still, it's a baby tree, but it's still, carrying this 4 or 5 foot sapling in the water to make its to make its dam. Okay. Now the thing that I found fascinating about the beaver is that it's making this dam for its family. There are several other types of animals that live within this dam. Okay, and it has to figure out the architectural thing of how to make something that allows water to flow on the outside but stay still on the inside, so it's still water up against wood, and still water and wood usually makes it rot. So they have to do all kinds of architectural things in order to make their system work. We're living with all kinds of other animals. And once I actually started studying the jam, I realized that it had a lot to do with this. It had a lot to do with pyramid technology because among other things, it's got moving water underneath, like all pyramids around the world have moving water underneath. So that was just my opening salvo to the beaver, um, just in terms of appreciating uh, what it's about, how it communicates. It talks to other beavers using its tail. In other words, there's a lot we can learn from this animal and all the other animals, and particularly with waterways and the proper ways of using, of having the land and having the land do its natural thing. As quiet as it's kept, there was a Supreme Court judgment last year, and basically it was, um, without going into the details, it was a judgment against. Uh, it was a judgment so that people who are making all these not projects, but all these houses and track homes and all this stuff, that they didn't have to pay as much attention to nature and work with waterways and natural forces. We're just gonna have to do a lot better because we have to coexist with the animals. So that's my opening thing about the beaver. As a matter of fact, every animal at this time needs to be appreciated, not because of its potential being extinct, but for the opposite reason. so that we appreciate what each and every one of our functions are, and so that we can encourage each, like if there's certain bugs that need to be in my garden, and I want to have the flowers that those need to eat so that they can sustain themselves. We're all work. This is all one system.
I get it. I watch definitely. I I didn't hit the robin, but I went over him before I realized it was. And
Hmm.
it was disturbing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
somebody hit it, and I understand. Second week of February, they're in South Carolina, so
Yeah.
I understand watching and
Hmm.
what they do and how they sing. When we look at the purpose of Little Egypt, Cairo, and Illinois,
Uh-huh.
and this eclipse is making an X there. And now that we know that our ancestors could calculate that, do you see a particular vortex there? Why they built that, even with St. Louis and the Arch and the rivers that came together there, the Ohio River and the Mississippi River. Do you think that there's some type of CERN there? Not the man made thing, but a vortex energy there, similar to maybe the Bermuda Triangle.
Uh, um, well, of course. Of course. Uh, what were the name of those places you mentioned before? Just mention them again.
One one of the major places is Little Egypt.
Uh-huh.
And then when you look, they have a Little Egypt Lake, Little Egypt Resort. That's all at the center of almost the center of the X, where the 17 and the 24 cross in
Okay.
Illinois.
Okay. See, I'm just having a very strong debate in my head because there's three different there's three different contenders that want to say something and they're all arguing with me. I want to talk first. Okay. The first thing I'll bring up, okay, because you brought up Little Egypt and then you brought up the arches, okay. Within a 5 mile, if we were to go to where the arches are today, and we were to walk 5 miles in either direction along the riverbank of the Mississippi, right there, okay, in that 10-mile period, there were 25 pyramids that were constructed along the Nile that people found when they first got to St. Louis. As a matter of fact, there were 5,000 Native American man-made structures there, and until they called it St. Louis, it was known by its indigenous name, which was the land of the city of, or the land of mounds.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay. Uh, and you can go and find photographs of these Western people around the turn of the century to 1900, and they're long. Those women with the long to the floor dresses, and the men with the top hats, and they're sitting right there on these pyramids that everybody knows none of them people made. They say they didn't make them. Okay. The second thing I want to say is, of course, um, since that was an area that I hitchhiked a lot, um, uh, and then going up the Nile, eventually when it made that turn up and to the left, you know, in other words, one of the first places that it starts is called Cairo, Illinois.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait a minute, this can't be a coincidence. All these uh, comedic things, and then you got Memphis. Okay, so uh, no, that there's a heavy, heavy ancient Kemite CERN energy going on there.
Wow. Powerful.
Mhm.
Um, Tapping into it.
Yeah, yes,
That's the next question.
that's right.
Do you believe it's true that they know and they tap into it? Just like there's people that believe that the Super Bowl is a ritual and they get all these people to believe in the Super Bowl and they use that energy.
Uh, Once again, I always address this type of question by saying, as a scientist, I don't have enough data to say if it's intentional, but as a scientist, I can say the result is still the same.
Hmm.
Um, in other words, whether they intended to do that or whether they just worked out that way, it's yes, it is being used as a ritual for programming. Uh, you know, I mean, they program people all the time. It's the fact that they can do it all at one time. Yeah, absolutely. And your bigger question, because you asked the question before that, yes, they know about it. You know, but sometimes they stumble into it, but most of the time, uh, they have enough. They've educated enough people to recognize syndromes, so when they run across it, that they can take care of it. I mean, there are too many stories in too many newspapers throughout this country about people finding something on their land and calling the proper authorities, and then the official people show up, and then it's never heard of again.
Yes. Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's not movies. That that happens all the time. So uh, but once again, because people, you know, we have to take the information is being dispersed out to every intelligent being, and this is not like an SAT, where we're being compared to other people or something. It's like it's up to us to figure out how to make that energy work and how to move it forward.
I agree. Because I don't personally think like there's people that say they stole our energy.
Right, 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 right,
I
right.
don't
Okay.
believe that. I believe it exists. And then if you utilize it, use it. Also, family, right now, that's the picture of the diamond. What they talk about during the eclipse,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
resembles something like that. You know,
Excellent. Yeah.
yeah, I do. I I just personally believe that it's there. It's all around. It's just like if there's gold, when it comes and it gets in your water, then if you don't get it, how can you say that they stole our energy? You know what I mean? It's been coming. It's just a matter of you getting involved in it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, once again, uh, my my response is, what's stopping us from using that?
Thank
Okay, they stole it. I'll grant you that. And okay, should that be motivation for us to go and try and get it sooner and faster and spread it more effectively? I don't know. but I'm not sitting around worried about it.
Well, I mean, when people talk about we gonna rise, you know
Okay.
what I mean, and
Yeah.
then you don't. I personally see if we rise, it'll be because we'll be using the energy that's
Right.
provided from the universe. It won't be a gun or a bullet. You see what I
Right.
mean?
Okay. 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 Well, I'll put it to you this way. Uh, uh, w- w- you know, once we're done using all the guns and bullets, we still got to rise.
Yes.
So,
And
and like any, you asked me for concrete um things that people can do, and even though this seems like one of the most minor ones, this is something I consider to be extremely medical, and that is, you know, these are events that don't occur that often, and the energy is highly concentrated, meaning that, once the sun starts to do its thing, for that time period, it can literally do damage if we look at it. Now, we're going to look at it with the proper equipment or whatever. But what I'm saying is, because this is such an intense event, we have to give it the proper respect and realize that give ourselves another 3 days to process, to physically process this. I don't mean mentally or spiritually or whatever. I mean, you know, take a break, go to bed earlier, drink more water. This kind of thing, it doesn't seem like it has that powerful of an effect, but it's going to be working on us gravitationally for quite some time.
that's powerful because when you add that we've moved into the Christi Uga,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Uh-huh.
And then we're getting an event that is working in conjunction with the Christi Uga because you use the word concentrated. This energy is going to be more concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
And then we mentioned pyramids. A lot of those pyramids was built when the energy was more concentrated.
That's right. That's right.
And so uh, it would be a time to get it. Actually, it'd be time for your children, especially if you have what they call crystal children
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and those special children. Then
Right.
they should be out there with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just for so that you can ensure that whatever special DNA they have,
Mm-hmm.
then they would get activated. So this would be more so for the young
Right.
than it is for us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you see what I mean? Like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get off my soapbox, but I just personally believe that it's a once in a lifetime event that can help push you over, you know, to the information you want to get or your personal spiritual growth, or more importantly, the water that you leave so that the ancestors can give you energy, it'll put you on track with what the universe saying is going to manifest.
Right.
Because what I say going to manifest may not be how they want. It may not want that to exist, like us trying to bring back the old Moorish government.
Right.
There's no government that's ever came back after they've
Mm-hmm.
fallen.
Right.
You know, so it's got to be something new. And those answers can be given to you at any time, but maybe more so now. And
I
so
know. You took the words right out of my head, out of my mind. Yes. Uh-huh.
please elaborate, please.
Well, you know, it would be it would we think it would be easy to go back to the familiar, you know, and it's only easy in the sense that we've worn those creases into those pants or into that jacket. You know, we know where how far it goes in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you know that it serves the purpose of now. You know, it served its purpose, and it's time for us to go into you know whatever form that it wants to take on. Okay, now us
Yes.
purists, you know, we walk around, you know, with our heads, with our noses in the air, like they used to say, you know, talk about, well, there was a time when the air was so pure, we just walk around, and all we had to do was, you know, just breathe. And there was, you know, monatomic gold and metals that were coming from space. That's absolutely true. That happened for thousands of years, okay, and led to some of the heaviest consciousness there was. On the other hand, okay, we are just entering into the Atlantean time frame, uh, and from the way that the from the way that the waves are interpreted in uh, in the Aquarian in the Aquarian realm, okay, while they're doing everything possible to put the chemtrails in the air to block out the natural monatomic metals that come here from space. Yes, that happens all day long. At the same time, any Aquarian will tell you you got more gold in your hand that you're holding your phone, you know, and since most people got phones now, we got gold. We got gold right here. It's just a matter of perception and perspective, you know, as to, you know, do you want it to work, you know, and, it'll work if we want it to work. Not because we're hoping or wishing, but because, you know, all things can change into all other things.
I get it.
And no, but to your point, how come all these the governments? How come they never change back into those same governments? That'd be easier. We know all the names. We know the roles. We know all the positions. That's not the most creative way. That's not the thing.
Uh, Definitely. In history, they don't.
Now, here's the
Uh,
other thing I want to tell you, and then I gotta go. Okay.
okay.
Um. Okay. This was an incoming last minute thing. Okay, and that is if we are growing our food, if we are growing our vegetables and fruit trees, if we're going to the farmer that we know and getting the stuff from him or her, if we're getting it from the grocery store, we're sending off, please, 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 we have got to talk with our food, okay? And I say this because our food is tired. And if we just talk with the food and the food tells us it's tired, then that might urge us to look for healthier food. And generally, when I say that, people interpret that as meaning, oh, well, you know, find a better Starbucks or a better um, whole foods. No, no, I'm talking about, eventually getting to the point where we're actually tending to or knowing the people that tend to our food. The food should be healthy, and we. In other words, what I'm saying is we have got to stop complaining about the lack of fresh food, and we've got to make a commitment to start being on the road to growing and distributing fresh food.
I get it. I get it. You know, I'm Henny Penny, so I think we should be growing our food because it could be a day just like the harbor, and you don't have
Uh-huh.
access
Uh-huh.
to it. And you got 60 days to
Right.
survive.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's the same with um, go ahead, finish your thought, and then I'll go into that. Uh, and then I got
Well,
one more
well,
question for you.
well. I mean, we didn't even bring up the bridge, but um,
Let's do the bridge.
let's take it to the
James
bridge.
Brown, take it to get up.
uh, like a sex machine. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So,
Maceo,
yes.
Lester. Oh, give it to me, Lester.
um, you know, the fact that uh, they were they hit one section of this bridge, and because it's a type of bridge called a cantilever bridge. You take out one part. If you take it out, it the other parts won't function. You
Yes.
know, but in this particular case, it's blocking the harbor, so they gotta get this thing up in order to remove it, in order to get the truck, to get the stuff in and out of the harbor. In other words, this is connected to our food in the sense that you know it's bad enough uh, that we got to unload our food from the ship and then has to have a truck bring it over the bridge. But now we can't even get it through the port. So it's just time. It's just time that we take the reins and we say we can do this. We don't have to depend on other people. Oh, by the way, that is also um, you know, just inches from where the man wrote our national anthem.
Wow.
The tribute to war. So, there might be a little tinge of that too. You know.
I've heard a lot. Plus, I have my own theory with it. But
Of course.
it's been, yeah, yeah, and I don't doubt nothing. And that's another reason why you know what you're saying about looking at food is
Mm-hmm.
important because there's a lot of people don't believe in coincidences anymore.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I guess I'll leave it at that. But I, you know, don't don't want to get kicked off me. I get started. But there's a lot of people don't. So I looked at the metaphysics of the frequency. You
Uh-huh.
know, there
Uh-huh.
there was a 695 frequency, there was a 128 frequency, you know, and then my spiritual gift is out of the Church of Philadelphia with the key of David. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's some interesting stuff about that. I don't know if they can predict an eclipse, they can, you know, do what they do. But it's more for me. It's a call. It's like the final call to
Right.
get
Right.
those things you need.
That's
You
right.
know, my friend.
That's right.
Because this ain't the first time this chain has been attacked. When them
Right.
boys was messing with the Suez Canal, you
Right.
know, and they had to go around the Horn of Africa, that messed with some stuff. You see,
That's
you know,
exactly right.
and so
Exactly right, my friend.
it's a thing where it's about being prepared. try to
Mhm.
be somewhat prepared.
Mhm.
And a big thing that I was each time I go with a group to um, hot springs,
Yeah.
I look at who's communal and who's not in terms of who would I want to survive with.
That's right.
And I look at the communal people. You don't have to ask them to do it, nothing. They chip in and get it done.
Right.
The people that ain't ready to go, if the lights went out tomorrow, it's the ones I wouldn't take with me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because they'll be doing the whole malingering thing.
Mhm.
Wow, yeah, and that's a shock. And I understand it's a shock. It's an ongoing debate with me and one of my best friends. I'm like, I count, I do these things, and he's more like, I do it when the time comes.
Right.
And I
Right.
know there's a shock. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's why they train the army. They don't throw them out there on the day of the war. They mentally prepare. You got to be
That's right.
mentally
That's
prepared
right.
for that.
Right.
And so, at some point, we should um, try growing. Um, you know, because I remember the even I've been telling some friends that have to have certain pharmaceuticals
Mhm.
to sustain their life.
Right.
They should find an alternative or start stockpiling at least year your high blood pressure medicine and whatever you need.
Mhm.
Because, people know if they got you addicted to it, they know in 30, 60, whenever you need to refill, it cannot be there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you got issues. They know it's like you gone. Or you out trying to rob somebody
Uh-huh.
to get it. That's the thing that I think that we should prepare for. We just can't take things for granted. It's like it's like a welfare state, you know, Mhm. like that. And so folks should do it. One last question, and I'm,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna let you off the hook. Um, who was the scientist that influenced you a lot, or inspired you? Or
Okay. All righty, smarty pants. Um, first of all, we gonna divide this into, like the Super Bowl.
okay,
Um, you know, there's the first half and then there's the second half. So in the first half, of course, if this was a made-for-TV movie, then of course I would be talking about George Washington Carver and Luther Burbank. Uh, Obviously, two giants in the field of agriculture and plant development. But I would be remiss because I would not in any way have appreciated their greatness had I not had my grandma Cindy in my life. Even
I
though
share,
she
I
even
share.
though even though she was not what people would call a straight up scientist with the test tubes and the Bunsen burners, she knew all that stuff. She chose to be exactly as you said. I've got my store bought stuff in on the shelf, and I got my two um my two my two bushels hanging out drying in the barn. In other words, she got the natural stuff in case the the man-made medicine runs out. Because she was using that bushel thing long before they made that mess. Now, in terms of the actual quote unquote what society would call scientists, I had no choice. I had no choice but uh, to um, learn about and revere George Washington Carver first, and then Luther Burbank. And I think I've told you this story before, but it's worth repeating. That my first piano, my piano teacher asked me what I wanted to do, what I was interested in life. And I said to him, I'm interested in agriculture. And looked he looked at me and said, well, young man, my college dormitory was over the laboratory of George Washington Carver. And so every year, every week for 10 years, I had a piano lesson and then a 10-minute story about George Washington Carver. And learning about his plant hospital, uh, I had no choice but to try and duplicate that in my backyard as well. Um, uh, and then, of course, Luther Burbank, uh, he, more than anything else, he taught me my work ethic because when he wanted to, um, when he wanted to cross pollinate a plant or try and make a new plant, he would make it, but then he would plant 100,000 of that plant, and he would go and inspect each one and look at each one, and then cross pollinate each one. So he was definitely a hands-on, you know, not automatic sprinklers to feed the plants kind of guy.
Mm.
And
Powerful.
he invented about 20 different vegetables, and uh, he moved out to California where he did a lot of
Come on, Almond. Come on.
wow.
It's getting ready to go.
Three people that I greatly got science from as a kid. Um, I want to mention Captain Nemo, of course, as well. uh, the character from the movies that had the underwater ship that was blowing up all the warships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a great inspiration to me too. But yeah,
Oh, I appreciate it. Not that I'm being nosy. I just
no,
appreciate.
no. I mean, first of all, I mean, that's once again, that would be like the Hallmark card version of the answer because
It's dark. You can see the star come out. Yo! Wow. Look at that, Booby. That's nice right there. Wow. It's dark. It's nighttime. Mine ain't either. Mine ain't just for the light.
is this a duplication that's less quality? And so growing up, I saw this all the time that, people would hire black engineers, uh, black electricians with stuff that they couldn't figure out or that they had the blueprints, but, they, they needed their help. So the idea of anything that dealt with thinking, especially with farming and agriculture, because, there were so many places in Harlem that, between the buildings, some of them had a little place that they're growing their food. That was commonplace.
I appreciate it. Just share it. And at this time too, I'm running some of the city scenery
Getting
before
dark.
getting inside. Trying to show you the sun is dying to make around it feel somewhat dark. That's some of the people that came back
Wow.
infiltrating the village of
Look at the darkness.
eclipse today. unfortunately, I didn't get took the corona because when the shadows came over, it got so dark. Your daughter tried. You had to put the camera down to get her, like that. But it was very powerful,
Well,
you know.
I will say from a scientific standpoint, this is one of those, you got greater odds of winning the lottery kind of thing. But if there is a coronal mass ejection uh, during that time period, you'll be able to see that.
Mm,
And that is when the sun lets off that magnetic energy in a 360-degree, it goes in all directions. So it has no choice but to hit us and all the other planets as well. But we've only seen these coronal mass ejections. I mean, we've known about them for less than 20 years. So it's exciting. It'll be exciting if we can actually get to see one, or even if it's recorded. But we don't often see the corona. Is the point I'm making? Back up what you're saying. We don't often get to experience the corona.
I would love to see one,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, because I'm telling you, it's worth seeing, you know, no doubt about it.
And then also too, it might be worth our time to actually sit down and think about, you know, what is actually the sun? You know, how does a star work? We take it for granted. Um, and what does the interstellar medium, in other words, what does space have to do with carrying those wonderful rays to us that keep everything alive?
That's what I think about.
Yeah,
I think about if it go away, we got some issues. I mean, it's gonna get super cold.
that's
Very
right.
things
Hey,
gonna die. So,
well, see, once again, um, it's gonna be super cold, but it's gonna be dark too.
yes, yes.
So y'all can play all those games y'all want, but uh, yeah, oh yeah, and then once the ocean starts getting cold,
We better pray that the ant people come out. You know what I
uh-huh,
mean? Better
uh-huh,
run to the help. You hope they got the gateway to the ant people. It's gonna be very interesting. You were talking about one time if we might be go extinct. That will make us go extinct immediately.
right,
Like that.
right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Just definitely. But it's a beautiful time. It's a truly beautiful time. You know, um, one of my favorite poets, Sekou Sindiati, he has this piece in one of his that he talks about the slaves was in the field dreaming of us. You know what I
Uh-huh,
mean?
uh-huh,
And so
uh-huh,
to go back to, let's say, I went to Upward Bound and they
uh-huh,
had this brother taught Black Studies. His name was Musa. And
uh-huh.
he took us under his wing and he started teaching us things like that. So, the at that point we dreamed about that. Now I'm at a point where I could see the mountaintop, in a
Uh-huh.
way. Not
Uh-huh.
and it's beautiful to be a part of it. To
Right.
be like today, we're playing a role in teaching to be a part of it. And
Mm-hmm.
we're teaching the same science that they put in the Pyramid of Giza.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the same signs. That was what was so brilliant about them. You can't lie about where the information come from because they put it in every block. They put some science in it. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
It's like shit. Show the proof. Shit. Well, let me take you to Kemet. Let alone, and that's not taking away. I could take you to Ohio to the Snake Mile, and
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
how you see what I mean. So there's places here we can go and learn a truth. I'm not gonna say it's our energy. I'm just gonna say that our ancestors tapped into it at that time. You know. That's a beautiful thing. So, in short, anything you would like to give us, um, e- eclipse or after the eclipse or non-eclipse related that you would like to say before we sign out, we'll all be happy and welcome.
Um, well, it's been very interesting to watch the weather of this time period because we've been under the El Nino, which is when the volcanoes, the Ring of Fire, is active in the Pacific, and so those waters have been warm, and we've had over 30 atmospheric rivers that have hit the West Coast this last period. The point being that we've got a changeover of energies, and so hurricane seasons should be pretty active. Tornado season should be pretty active this year. And yet, um, everything in nature seems to be trying to uh, get started as soon as possible. All the trees started coming out in February here, even before it snowed and it got cold. So what I'm saying is that this is a time period that we want to look for from, say, the first of Taurus on, these new places for our talents to go, these new money making ventures, these new partnerships. Um, all those things are going to start to germinate at that time. So do our cleansing, continue to do our due diligence, talk with our plants, but don't be surprised when new opportunities start to show up at the middle of this month.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And mine would be try to stay close to your family during full moon.
Yeah,
Something about that energy,
yeah.
so definitely try to do that. Well, I appreciate you, brother. You know I love you. And thanks for your education, primarily for me too, you know. And so hopefully we'll do it again. Family, this is 2024 Tools of the Eclipse. And one other note, the program that Lester and I did, the Tools for the Eclipse in 2017, should be uploaded on this YouTube. So you can go back and get juicy stuff from that he gave us, along with the juicy stuff that he gave us. Yeah, and this Lesser Loving's very accessible family. You know, he's been a teacher for a long, long time in our community. And so let's give him applause for that. You know, we appreciate you teaching. You know, it's not always rewarding, but the point is you start teaching, you know, before we started seeing evidence of the
Mm-hmm.
change. Because, you know, like my daughter and these youngers, they take it for granted. You know, it's like, what? That blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't always back there. In 69, when I started,
Right, right.
you tippy-toed around some of this crap. You know what I
That's right.
mean? You know,
That's right.
you go to the family reunion, you ain't even talk about it. Nah. Now you go to reunion today. In some families, they don't talk about Christianity. They
Right, that's
talking.
right, right, right,
Those
right.
things have changed, you know. So we appreciate you. If you're not told enough, we definitely appreciate you. And family, thanks for y'all coming. You know what I mean? It'll be on YouTube so you can recap it, fast forward, especially when you look at the fire, water, air, and taking some of those things. And with that, I'm Brother Yusiku of the Ringing Stone Network.